The morning sun rose slowly over the wide, open land of the western frontier, touching every hill and field with a soft golden light. The air was fresh, the sky clear, and a gentle wind brushed across the tall grass that stretched for miles. Far away from towns and busy roads stood a large ranch, quiet yet full of life. Horses moved in their pens, cattle grazed peacefully, and the steady sound of wagon wheels rolling over dirt drew closer to the main house. This was the place where a young woman named Clara would begin a completely new life, one that she had agreed to, but did not fully understand yet. Clara sat inside the small wooden wagon with her hands folded tightly on her lap. She tried to calm her breathing as she watched the long road behind her fade into the distance. Everything she had known was miles away, now her childhood home. Her small room, the familiar voices from the marketplace, and the tiny garden she used to care for. She was leaving it all because she had made a decision that would change everything. She had agreed to become a mail-order bride, hoping to find safety, a home, and a future she could build from the ground up. She had read the letter again and again during the journey. It came from a rancher named Ethan Cole, a man known for his great height, strong build, and kind nature. People in town called him the giant cowboy, not because he was frightening, but because he was a gentle yet powerful presence. His words in the letter had been warm, filled with hope. He had promised that whoever joined him at his ranch would never face hunger, fear, or loneliness again. He had written that he wanted a partner, someone honest, someone brave enough to build a life beside him. Clara had found comfort in his promise, even though she had never met him. She held tightly on to that hope now. The driver of the wagon, Mr. Thompson, glanced back with a friendly smile. "Not far now," he said. "Cole Ranch is just beyond that ridge. We'll see it soon." Clara nodded and tried to smile, but her nerves sat like stones in her stomach. She had never traveled so far alone. She had never even spoken to a man she was expected to marry. She wondered what Ethan would be like in person. Would he be gentle? Would he be patient? Would he truly welcome her? She told herself that she needed to trust her choice. She had come here for a reason. As the wagon rolled over the ridge, the ranch came into view. It was bigger than she expected. A large wooden house stood proudly in the center, surrounded by barns, sheds, and fenced fields. Smoke rose from the chimney, and a few ranch hands were already working, moving animals or stacking hay. Everything looked alive and organized, as if the place ran smoothly every single day. Clara felt her heart speed up. This would be her new home. This land, this house, this life. The wagon slowed as they approached the front yard. Before it even stopped, a tall figure stepped out of the house. Ethan Cole stood on the porch, and he looked exactly as Clara imagined from his letter's broad shoulders, strong arms, and a calm but serious expression. His hat shaded part of his face, but when he stepped closer, his warm brown eyes became clear. There was no harshness in them. Instead, there was genuine curiosity and a quiet kind of kindness. Clara felt her breath catch in her chest. This was the man she had agreed to marry. This was the man who had promised her a safe future. Seeing him in person made everything real in a way that felt overwhelming and hopeful all at once. The wagon came to a stop. Ethan stepped forward and offered his hand to help her down. She hesitated for only a moment, then placed her hand gently into his. His touch was warm and steady, grounding her in a way she didn't expect. Her step onto the ground with surprising gentleness, despite his large size. "Welcome to Cole Ranch," he said in a calm, deep voice. "I'm glad you're here, Clara." His words were simple, but they carried sincerity that eased some of her fear. She nodded, trying to find her voice. "Thank you. I'm grateful to be here." Ethan gave a small smile, almost shy, which softened his strong features. "I know this is a big change for you. Please don't rush yourself. You'll have time to settle in." Clara felt a little of her tension melt away. She had worried that he would expect too much too soon, but his calm reassurance told her that he understood her nerves. She followed him toward the house while Mr. Thompson unloaded her small trunk. Inside, the home was warm and welcoming. The wooden floors were polished, sunlight shined through wide windows, and the cozy smell of bread filled the air. Clara took in every detail the handmade furniture, the small bookshelf near the fireplace, the soft rug, and the framed drawings on the wall. It wasn't a grand house, but it was filled with care. Everything looked strong, reliable, and lived in. She felt a spark of comfort growing in her chest. Ethan guided her through the rooms, speaking softly as he showed her the kitchen, dining area, and guest room where she would stay until they were both ready to discuss their marriage. His thoughtfulness surprised her. Many men would not have been so patient or respectful. His care made her feel seen, understood, and less alone. When they reached the guest room, Ethan paused. "I want you to feel safe here," he said. "If you need anything at all, just tell me." Clara looked up into his steady eyes, trying to understand this man she had agreed to share her life with. She didn't know him yet, but something about him felt trustworthy. She felt a quiet hope forming inside her, a tiny flame growing stronger with every moment. "Thank you," she whispered. "I'll do my best to make this place my home." Ethan nodded gently. "And I'll do my best to make it a place you want to stay." For the first time since she left her old life behind, Clara felt her heart relax. The ranch was peaceful. Ethan was kinder than she expected. Something deep inside her whispered that this new beginning might bring the life she had always dreamed of, one filled with safety, understanding, the chance to grow into someone stronger than she had ever been before. She placed her small trunk at the foot of the bed, looked out the window at the open land stretching endlessly outside, and took a slow breath. This was her new world, her new journey, and it was only the beginning. Clara woke the next morning to a soft, warm light filling the room. For a moment she lay still, listening to the faint sounds of the ranch, waking up horses neighing in the distance, men calling to each other as they began their work, the gentle rhythm of footsteps on wooden floors downstairs. The peaceful noises made her feel like she had stepped into a different world, one far away from the noise and uncertainty she had left behind. She sat up slowly, letting her eyes adjust, and looked around the small but comfortable room. Her few belongings were neatly arranged, and the room smelled faintly of fresh wood and sunshine. She got dressed carefully, smoothing the wrinkles from her plain dress. Her hands trembled slightly, not from fear but from the newness of everything. She wanted to make a good start here, to show respect for the home she had been welcomed into. When she opened the door and stepped into the hallway, she could hear quiet voices from downstairs. One of them was Ethan's deep, calm voice. Taking a deep breath, Clara walked down the stairs. The steps creaked softly under her weight, and as she reached the bottom, she saw Ethan placing a pot of coffee on the kitchen table while one of the ranch hands, a friendly older man named Samuel, adjusted his hat before heading out. Ethan turned when he heard her footsteps. His warm brown eyes softened slightly. "Good morning, Clara. I hope you slept well," as she said with a small smile. "Thank you. The room is very comfortable." "I'm glad." Ethan gestured to the table. "Sit, please. I made breakfast. It's simple, but I hope you'll like it." Clara hesitated only a moment before taking a seat. The kitchen had a peaceful feeling to it, sunlight pouring through the windows, the smell of warm bread on the table, and a gentle hum of activity from outside. When Ethan placed a plate in front of her with eggs, bread, and fresh butter, her stomach tightened with gratitude. She had not often eaten such meals in the past. Life had been hard, food scarce, and comfort something she rarely tasted. "This looks wonderful," she said quietly. Ethan took his own seat across from her, but she could tell he was watching her gently, trying not to overwhelm her. They ate in comfortable silence at first, each moment filled with the simple warmth of sharing a meal. Clara felt a calmness settle over her. Ethan didn't rush her, didn't ask too many questions, and didn't make her feel watched. Instead, he created space where she could breathe. After a few minutes, Ethan spoke again. "If you feel ready today, I can show you around the ranch more. Only if you wish." Clara nodded. "I'd like that." Something in Ethan's expression softened even more. "Good. There's no hurry. Today you can meet the horses, see the barns, maybe walk through the fields. I want you to understand this land and feel comfortable moving around it." Clara admired how gentle and respectful he was. It wasn't what she expected from a man with such a strong presence. Everything about him suggested steadiness, someone who understood that trust needed time to grow. After breakfast, Clara stepped outside with Ethan. The sunlight was brighter now, The cool morning breeze carried the smell of fresh earth and grass. The ranch stretched out wide in every direction, fields rolling like waves, horses running freely in the distance, and tall fences marking different areas. It was beautiful, peaceful, and almost overwhelming. Ethan walked beside her, matching his steps to hers. "This land has been in my family for years," he said. "My father built this ranch from the ground up. When I was old enough, I took over. It's a lot of work, but I try to keep things steady." Clara listened closely, trying to picture the history of the place. She could imagine a younger Ethan helping his father, learning how to take care of animals, building fences and repairing barns. She found herself admiring the quiet strength he carried so naturally. "Do you ever get lonely here?" she asked before she could hold the question back. Ethan paused, then nodded gently. "Sometimes. The land is wide and the days are long. Having company makes a difference. A home feels different when someone else shares it." Words touched Clara deeply. She understood loneliness all too well. It had been her silent companion for most of her life. Knowing he understood that feeling made her heart loosen slightly. They walked toward the horse corral. The animals flicked their ears and lifted their heads as they approached. Ethan leaned on the fence, watching them with a calm, familiar affection. "Horses are honest creatures," he said. "They sense fear, kindness, uncertainty, everything. But once they trust you, they stay loyal." Clara stepped closer, watching a brown mare trot gently along the fence line. "She's beautiful," she whispered. "That's Willow," Ethan explained. "She's gentle. Would you like to meet her?" Clara hesitated, but nodded. Ethan stepped inside the corral first, moving slowly so the horses wouldn't startle. He held out his hand, and Willow approached, nudging his palm with her soft nose. When he turned and gestured for Clara to come in, her heart raced with nervous excitement. She stepped inside carefully. The ground was soft beneath her feet, the air warm with the scent of hay. Ethan guided her gently to stand beside him. "Hold out your hand slowly," he said. Clara did as he instructed. Willow approached her, curious but calm. When the mare's warm breath brushed against her palm, Clara felt her heart swell with amazement. She had never been so close to such a large animal before. Willow nudged her hand again, and Clara's tentative smile grew into something brighter. "She likes you," Ethan said, his voice warm with approval. Clara felt a flutter of happiness. "I've never been around horses. This is wonderful. I'm glad." Ethan stepped back a little, giving her space. "There's no need to rush anything. Every new thing takes time." Clara realized something important in that moment. Ethan's patience extended to every part of her new life. He didn't push. He didn't demand. He simply guided her gently, letting her go at her own pace. After spending time with the horses, Ethan led her through the barns and fields. She met a few more ranch hands, all polite and respectful. They greeted her with kind smiles and made her feel welcome. Clara began to see how much work went into keeping the ranch alive. Men repaired fences, fed animals, carried hay, and checked the land for any issues. It was a world full of effort and discipline, but also full of meaning. As they walked, Clara asked questions about how the ranch worked, about the seasons, the crops, and the animals. Ethan answered every question patiently, happy to share his knowledge. His voice was steady, his explanations simple and clear, and his presence comforting. By midday, they reached a small hill overlooking the entire ranch. Clara paused, taking in the breathtaking view. The fields spread out endlessly, glowing beneath the sun. The house stood strong, surrounded by life and movement. It felt like a world she had never imagined being part of. "It's beautiful," she whispered. Ethan stood beside her, his hands resting loosely at his sides. "It is," he said softly. "But it becomes something more when someone sees it with me." Clara felt heat rise in her cheeks. She didn't know what to say, but his words touched her deeply. They stood in silence for a moment, both looking out across the land. When they returned to the house later, tired but content, Clara felt a sense of belonging beginning to form inside her chest. It wasn't fully solid yet, but it was there like a seed taking root. Ethan opened the door for her. "Thank you for walking with me today," he said quietly. Clara looked up at him with soft eyes. "Thank you. for showing me everything." In that moment, she understood something important. This place, this ranch, and this man were not just part of her new life. They were the beginning of something steady, safe, and filled with hope. She didn't know what the future looked like yet, but for the first time in a long time, she felt ready to discover it. And as she stepped inside the house, she realized she was no longer just a visitor. She was slowly becoming part of this world. Clara woke on her third morning at the ranch with a calmer heart than before. The first day had been full of nerves, the second full of discovery, but now she felt something new, a gentle sense of belonging. It wasn't strong yet, but it was warm enough to give her courage. She got out of bed, smoothed her dress, and tied her hair back with a small ribbon she had saved from her old life. A soft breeze passed through the open window, carrying the smell of fresh grass and morning dew. It made her smile without even realizing it. When she stepped downstairs, she found the kitchen already lively. Ethan stood near the stove, stirring something in a pot. The gentle clatter of pans and the soft crackle of firewood made the room feel alive. Ethan looked over his shoulder when he heard her footsteps. "Good morning, Clara," he said with a warm nod. "I hope you're hungry. We've got a long day ahead." Clara tilted her head slightly. "A long day?" Ethan smiled. "Just a little. Thought it might be time to show you more of the things you might like to do here. Only if you wish, of course." His gentle way of speaking made her feel safe, like she could try new things without fear of being judged or pushed too fast. "I'd like that," she replied with sincerity. After breakfast, Ethan led her outside. But this time, they did not go toward the horses or the barns. Instead, they walked behind the house, toward a small fenced section of land she had not explored yet. As they approached, Clara saw rows of soil, young plants beginning to sprout, and tools neatly arranged beneath a small shaded roof. "This," Ethan said, gesturing around them, "is the garden. It's not much now, but in a few months, it will be full of vegetables and herbs." Clara felt her heart lift in a way she hadn't expected. "It's beautiful," she said softly. "It'll be more beautiful if someone with patience takes care of it," Ethan replied gently. "I thought, maybe you'd like to help with this part of the ranch." Clara bent down and touched the soil with her fingertips. It was soft, warm, and familiar. She had helped tend a small garden back home, and she remembered how peaceful it felt to care for something that grew slowly, but surely. "I'd love to," she said, feeling a small burst of joy inside her chest. Ethan handed her a pair of gloves. "You can take your time. I'll be nearby if you need anything." As he walked off to speak with the ranch hands, Clara kneeled beside the first row of young plants. The soil had been watered recently, and the tiny leaves looked delicate and new. She brushed away small weeds, smoothed the dirt around the stems, and breathed in the fresh morning air. With every movement, she felt more connected to the land. As she worked, Samuel, the older ranch hand she had met earlier, approached with a friendly smile. "Miss Clara, the garden is in good hands now," he said warmly. "Mr. Cole's mother used to take care of it. He'll be glad to see it growing again." Clara paused, surprised. "His mother?" Samuel nodded. "She loved this place. Spent hours here every day. Mr. Cole was close to her. He keeps this garden to honor her memory." Clara looked around the peaceful space with new eyes. There was something tender here, something loved. She understood now why Ethan had chosen to show her this special place. It wasn't just about planting vegetables. It was about carrying forward a part of his family's heart. "I'll take good care of it," Clara promised. "I know you will," Samuel said before returning to his work. Hours slipped by as Clara tended the garden. She loosened the soil where it was too tight, pulled out weeds, and watered the young plants with gentle care. The simple work calmed. Her thoughts had made her feel more connected to the ranch than anything else had so far. She felt useful. She felt like she belonged. When she finally stood up and wiped the sweat from her forehead, she saw Ethan standing a little distance away, watching her with quiet approval. He'd been waiting for the right moment not to disturb her. "You've done a lot," he said as he stepped closer. "It looks better than it has in months." Clara felt a shy warmth spread across her cheeks. "It was peaceful," she said softly. "I enjoyed it," Ethan nodded. "Good, I'm glad. There's no rush. You can spend as much time here as you like." They walked together toward the house for lunch. As they walked, Clara noticed how Ethan kept just enough distance to give her space, yet close enough that she could feel his steady presence. It made her feel protected but not pressured. It was a balance she deeply appreciated. After lunch, Ethan asked if she wanted to see more of the ranch's inner workings. Clara nodded eagerly. She wanted to understand everything about this place that might become her permanent home. They visited the cattle fields next. The cows grazed peacefully, their tails swishing lazily in the warm sunlight. Ethan explained how they were cared for, how the ranch hands rotated the grazing areas, and how they made sure the animals stayed healthy. Clara listened with full attention, asking questions whenever she was unsure. Ethan answered each one with patience and clarity. Later, they visited the storage barn where tools, seeds, and supplies were kept. Clara could see how organized Ethan was. Everything had a place. Everything was well maintained. It made her realize how much responsibility he carried on his shoulders. "You run all of this," she said quietly, almost in amazement. Ethan shrugged slightly, but with humility. "It's not just me. The ranch hands are hard-working men. I trust them. And now," he hesitated, then finished gently, "I'd like to trust you with a part of it too, if you feel ready." Clara's heart softened unexpectedly. "I want to help," she said. "Not because I must, but because I want to be part of something meaningful." Ethan gazed at her with a softness she had not seen before. "That means more than you know." As the afternoon sun began to lower, they took a short walk to the edge of the property where a small calm stream flowed. The water sparkled under the warm light, and tall wildflowers swayed in the breeze. Clara inhaled the sweet scent of nature and felt her chest relax. "This is my favorite place," Ethan said quietly. "Whenever the world feels heavy, I come here." Clara stepped closer to the water, listening to its soft babble. "It's peaceful," she whispered. They stood side by side, not speaking, simply sharing the moment. Clara felt something shift inside her, something gentle and new. She realized that the silence between them wasn't awkward. It was comforting. It was safe. As they walked back toward the house, Clara felt a quiet understanding forming between them. It wasn't loud or rushed. It was steady, like the land itself. That evening after dinner, Clara returned to her room. She looked out the window at the darkening sky, where stars were beginning to appear one by one. She thought about the garden she had tended, the animals she had met, and the peaceful stream where Ethan had shared a small piece of his heart. She sat on the edge of her bed, realizing something she had not expected this soon. She was beginning to feel at home. Ethan's kindness, the ranch's quiet strength, and the way each day revealed a new layer of life had started to melt away her fears. She still had much to learn, and there were still uncertainties in her future, but she no longer felt alone in facing them. For the first time, Clara felt a seed of hope growing steady, strong, and warm. And she knew that whatever lay ahead, she was ready to continue this journey. Clara awoke on her fourth morning feeling a quiet excitement she couldn't fully explain. Each day on the ranch had brought her something new. Tasks, new discoveries, new feelings she had never allowed herself to feel before. She dressed slowly, smoothing her dress and tying her hair back, but her thoughts were already racing ahead. She wondered what the day would bring, what new parts of the ranch she would learn about. Most of all, how her growing connection with Ethan would unfold. It wasn't love yet, but it was something warm, steady, and hopeful. A feeling she carried with her as she stepped out into the soft morning light. Downstairs, she found the kitchen empty, though a warm cup of tea had been left on the table with a small note beside it. She picked it up carefully. "I'll be in the workshop. Join me when you're ready." Clara smiled softly. Ethan's handwriting was strong and neat, just like the man himself. She took a slow sip of her tea, savoring the warmth before stepping outside. The air carried a hint of coolness from the night before. But the sun was already beginning to rise higher, spreading gold across the fields. The workshop stood a little distance from the main house, a sturdy wooden building with large windows and a roof that slanted slightly to one side. She approached it slowly, listening to the faint sounds of tools inside. When she reached the doorway, she paused for a moment before stepping in. Inside, Ethan was working at a large wooden table, his broad back slightly hunched as he sanded a piece of wood. Sunlight poured in through the window, catching the tiny dust particles floating in the air. It made the room feel warm, almost magical. Ethan turned when he heard her footsteps. "Morning," he said with a gentle smile. "I hope the tea was warm enough." "She was perfect," she replied. "What are you working on?" He stepped aside so she could see better. "A small shelf," he explained. "I thought you might need something like this for your room, but only if you want it." The simplicity of the gesture touched Clara deeply. "I would love that," she said, her voice softer than she intended. "I hoped you would," he replied, almost shyly. Ethan handed her a pair of gloves. "Would you like to help?" Clara nodded eagerly. Working beside him felt natural now. He guided her gently, showing her how to sand the wood evenly, how to shape the edges, how to check the smoothness with her fingertips. The work was slow but comforting, and their shared silence felt warm rather than empty. Clara noticed he always kept his movements calm and steady, as if he wanted to make sure she never felt rushed or overwhelmed. After an hour of quiet work, the small shelf was ready. They set it aside to rest, and Ethan wiped his hands on a cloth. "You're a fast learner," he said. "My mother would have liked your patience." Clara felt a gentle ache in her chest at the mention of his mother again. "You talk about her with such respect," she said softly. "She was the heart of this place," he replied, looking around the workshop. "Everything I do, I try to do with the same care she taught me." Clara's admiration for him grew even stronger. He wasn't just a strong man or a hard-working rancher. He was someone shaped by love, someone who valued kindness, someone who honored memories instead of running from them. "Would you like to take a walk?" Ethan asked after a moment. "There's something I want to show you." Clara nodded, curious. They walked past the barns and fields, taking a path she hadn't explored before. It led toward a cluster of tall trees at the edge of the property. The path felt peaceful, lined with wildflowers and soft grass. Birds perched on branches above them, singing gently as they passed. "Where are we going?" Clara asked with a touch of excitement. "You'll see," Ethan replied with a small smile. When they reached the trees, Ethan slowed his steps. He guided her gently to a small clearing, where a wooden bench sat beneath a large oak tree. The area was quiet and shaded, the air cool and fresh. Clara noticed something carved into the back of the bench: 2 initials, weathered but still clear. "AC, your mother?" Clara asked softly. Ethan nodded. "Alice Cole. She used to sit here every evening. She would watch the sunset and talk to me about everything: life, work, dreams. This was her favorite place." Clara sat on the bench, feeling the weight of its history. "It's peaceful here," she whispered. "It is," Ethan agreed. "I come here when I need to think or remember." Silence settled gently between them, not heavy but meaningful. Clara ran her fingers over the carved initials. "Thank you for sharing this with me," she said. "I wanted you to understand this part of my life too," Ethan replied quietly. "This ranch. It's more than a home. It holds stories. And maybe, in time, it can hold yours too." Clara felt a warm wave of emotion rise in her chest. She didn't know what to say, so she simply looked out at the landscape, letting the stillness fill her heart. They spent several minutes there before Ethan stood and offered his hand. Clara placed her hand in his, letting him help her up. His touch was gentle, steady, and full of unspoken understanding. Together, they walked back toward the ranch. By afternoon, Clara returned to the garden. She wanted to check on the young plants, to see if any new leaves had sprouted. She knelt at the rows, her fingers brushing the soil with a tenderness she hadn't realized she possessed. Working in the garden reminded her of who she was before: quiet, hopeful, hardworking, and who she was becoming now. As she worked, she didn't notice that Ethan was watching her from a distance. His arms crossed loosely, and a quiet expression on his face. Samuel walked up beside him. "She's fitting in well," Samuel said with a knowing smile. Ethan nodded. "More than I expected. She brings something gentle to this place." "And to you?" Ethan didn't reply, but the slight lift at the corner of his mouth said, "Enough." Later, Ethan walked toward the garden. Clara stood when she saw him approaching. "The garden looks even better today," he said. "I just did a little," she replied modestly. It makes a big difference, he assured her. Everything you do here matters, Clara. This ranch feels different with you in it. Clara felt her heartbeat quicken, but she forced herself to breathe slowly. I'm glad I can help, she said. They stood together in the fading light, the sky painted orange and pink. It was the kind of moment that made Clara's world feel balanced, safe, and full of possibilities. As evening approached, they walked back to the house side by side. Clara felt a growing sense of calm settle over her. She had not expected such peace when she arrived. She had not expected this slow, steady connection with a man she barely knew. Yet each day brought her closer to understanding him, and closer to understanding herself. Inside her room that night, she placed the small wooden shelf carefully on the table. She touched its smooth surface and remembered how they had made it together. It wasn't just a piece of furniture. It was a symbol of patience, trust, and shared effort. She sat on her bed, looking out the window at the starry sky. Her thoughts drifted to Ethan's gentle smile, his quiet strength, and the way he treated her with respect from the moment she arrived. She felt something warm and steady forming deep inside her, feeling she had never felt before. She didn't know exactly what the future held, but she knew she wanted to face it here, on this ranch, with him nearby. And for the first time in her life, Clara felt truly hopeful for the days to come. Clara woke early on her 5th morning. This time she felt something different, something warm and bright in her chest. That made her smile before she even opened her eyes. The ranch had slowly woven itself into her life during the past few days. Each morning she felt less like a visitor and more like someone who belonged there. The sounds of the ranch waking up the distant call of cattle, the soft clatter of tools, the voices of workers greeting the Dane no longer felt unfamiliar. They felt comforting. They felt like home. She dressed with care, choosing a simple dress and tying her hair back neatly. When she stepped out of her room, she found a quiet stillness in the hallway. It seemed she had risen earlier than usual. She walked downstairs to find Ethan already in the kitchen, pouring water into a kettle. The warm glow from the early morning sun filtered through the windows, painting him in soft gold. He turned when he heard her footsteps. "Morning, Clara," he said gently. "You're up early today?" "Couldn't sleep much," she admitted with a shy smile. The day felt too full of possibilities. Ethan nodded, understanding without questioning. "In that case, would you like to walk with me before breakfast?" Clara agreed without hesitation. They stepped outside into the cool morning air. The sky still held traces of dawn's orange and pink, slowly giving way to soft blue. As they walked across the yard, the ranch stretched out before them in quiet peacefulness. Horses grazed lazily, birds chirped from tree branches, and the distant hills glowed under the rising sun. Ethan led her toward the same stream they had visited before. Clara loved the sound of the water. It soothed her heart every time she heard it. When they reached the edge of the stream, Ethan paused and looked out over the sparkling water. "I've been thinking," he said slowly, his voice lower than usual, as if choosing each word with care. "These past days, they've shown me something I didn't expect." Clara's breath caught slightly, though she kept her expression calm. Ethan continued. "I wasn't sure what it would be like to have someone new here, to have someone walking beside me, helping, sharing the days, but you've brought a peacefulness to this ranch I didn't know I was missing." Clara felt her heart warm. She looked down at the stream, unsure how to respond yet. Ethan turned to her. "I don't want to rush you, Clara. I know this is new for both of us, but I want to be honest with you." He took a slow breath. "I would like you to stay. Not because you must, but because I want you, Tiff. You feel the same." Clara lifted her gaze to meet his. She saw sincerity in his eyes, steady, gentle, hopeful. The same sincerity she had seen from the first day. She swallowed softly before answering. "I do feel the same," she said. "More than I expected to. This place, it's given me peace I've never had before." Ethan's expression softened in relief. "Then I'd like to build a future with you, but only at your pace." Clara nodded, her heart full. "I'd like that too." They stood beside the stream for a moment longer, letting the quiet promise sink into their hearts like morning sunlight warming the land. When they returned to the ranch house, Clara felt lighter than ever. Breakfast tasted better, the sunlight looked brighter, and even the familiar creak of the wooden floor felt comforting. Ethan seemed more relaxed too, a quiet happiness shining in his eyes every time he looked at her. After breakfast, they visited the garden together. Clara showed him how the small plants had grown since the day before. Ethan listened with genuine interest, asking gentle questions as she spoke. He watched her move among the rows of young sprouts, admiring how her hands seemed to know exactly where to touch, where to adjust, where to nurture. "You make this place feel alive again," he said softly. Clara felt shy, but grateful. "The land is doing most of the work," she replied quietly. They spent the morning tending the plants together. Ethan helped her carry water buckets and clear out old weeds, though she knew he was letting her take the lead because he respected how much she cared for the garden. Later in the day, Claire walked to the barn to check on Willow. The brown mare recognized her immediately and walked over with gentle curiosity. Clara stroked her soft nose and felt a warm familiarity grow stronger inside her. She felt safe, here truly safe. Ethan joined her, leaning on the fence as he watched her bond with the mare. "She likes you more each day," he said, admiration in his tone. "I like her too," Clara replied. "Would you like to try learning how to ride her?" Ethan suggested gently. Clara blinked, surprised. "Me? Ride?" "If you'd like to," he said. "Only if you feel ready." Clara hesitated. Horses were large and powerful, and the idea of riding one made her heart flutter with a mix of excitement and nervousness. But Ethan's steady gaze reassured her. She nodded slowly. Ethan spent the next hour teaching her the basics of riding. He stayed beside her, offering his hand when she mounted, guiding the reins with her and keeping Willow calm with quiet commands. Clara felt her heart race at first, but Ethan's calm voice and patient instructions eased her worries. Soon, she was sitting confidently in the saddle, feeling Willow's gentle movements beneath her. "You're doing well," Ethan said proudly. Clara smiled, feeling a sense of accomplishment she hadn't expected. In the afternoon, they rested under the shade of the large oak tree near the edge of the property. The same tree that held memories of Ethan's mother. Clara felt honored that Ethan had shared this place with her. She rested her hands on her knees and looked out at the calm landscape. "I never imagined my life could look like this," she admitted quietly. Ethan looked at her gently. "Neither did I, but I'm glad it does." They talked for a long while about their pasts, their hopes, their fears, and their dreams. Clara spoke about the hardships she left behind, and Ethan shared stories of his father and the challenges of running the ranch. Their conversation felt natural, like the slow turning of pages in a book they were writing together. As the sun began to set, painting the sky with deep oranges and purples, they walked back toward the house. Clara felt a sense of wholeness she had never known. The house stood warm and welcoming, the ranch workers finishing up their tasks, animals settling into their nighttime peace. Inside her room that evening, Clara looked at the wooden shelf again, the one she and Ethan had made together. She placed a few small belongings on it, a folded handkerchief, a ribbon, a tiny flower she had pressed between pages of her notebook. The shelf looked simple, yet it held great meaning. She sat on the edge of her bed and thought about everything that had happened since she arrived. The fear she once carried had slowly been replaced by trust. The loneliness she once knew had gently transformed into belonging, and the uncertainty she carried in her heart had softened into hope. She had come here as a stranger. Now she felt herself becoming part of something meaningful, part of the land, part of the home, part of the calm rhythm of the ranch, and part of Ethan's life. As she lay down to rest, Clara closed her eyes with a peaceful smile. This was not just a beginning anymore. It was the start of a future she was ready to embrace, steady, gentle, and full of growing light.